Hello and welcome back, Home Cinema Heroes. This is video number 2 in the Home Cinema Basics course, and we're looking at the differences between a DIY install and a DFY install, i.e. do-it-yourself versus done for you, aka a professional installation. So let's get into it. Why DIY? Well, obviously it can be cheaper than a done-for-you solution. I emphasize can be if you don't have to outsource the labor. If you can do the installation and the design and basically all of the work yourself, then it can be cheaper, because the groundwork for the design, installation, speccing, and just everything to get to the point before adding the finishing touches, that can be very expensive in itself. Naturally, you'll be in control of everything, although that isn't always a good thing, because my experience with customers trying to project manage projects by themselves when they haven't had the experience before, they generally tend to get overwhelmed with the amount of, let's say, liaising they have to do. They completely miss or underestimate how well things have to be organized to get certain materials installed and in place at the right time for everything to flow naturally. So being in control can be a good thing if you're that way inclined, but it can also be a bad thing if you do get overwhelmed. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, you can concentrate on what's most important to you. So if you've got a tight budget, it means that you can, say, forego a quality in one respect to get better quality in something else. For instance, you could forfeit having comfortable cinema seating for a better quality projector, or you could go for a slightly smaller screen to get better quality speakers, or whatever. You can always make compromises or forfeits or substitutions. One of the biggest downsides, though, is that you would be limited to consumer products, basically what you can buy in shops and online, unless of course you know a guy who works in the trade that can get you some, special bits at decent prices. With a system built by yourself, future upgrades and add-ons are easy to implement, because you know where everything is. You know where the cabling is run, you know what cabling is there, you know what equipment is currently in place, and you know what the system, the environment is overall capable of. So you will kind of be at the forefront of when or if the system does have to evolve or change, or anything needs replacing, then you'll know exactly where to begin, rather than having to get someone else in to, well, basically hope that the installer maintain drawings of a system. I'm not going to get into the details there, but it goes hand in hand with being in control of everything. And finally, of course, you get to learn new things. So if you've never done any constructive or construction-based DIY, you'll get to learn that. If you've never had to specify, say, speaker systems, for instance, you'll get to learn how to do that. Same for screens, selecting seating, sourcing products, components, cabling, the list goes on. So those are not necessarily pros or cons, but a few points to definitely keep in mind when building or designing your own system. Then we look at professional installations. So naturally, these are supposed to give you the best bang for buck. That's only if DIY really is not an option, as in if you are someone who is very busy, someone who is time poor essentially, and you have enough money to pay for someone else to do it, then in that case, yes, bang for buck is definitely there with a professionally installed system. A lot of professionals will design home cinema systems to meet industry standards. There are various, let's say, governing bodies that put out some standards for audio design and screen selection and seating positions and everything like that. And of course there are IMAX enhanced and DCI compliancy, etc. Standards for if you want to be able to watch certain films. What I mean by this is some films will only be available in IMAX enhanced formats, for instance, and some films, especially new releases, can only be played in DCI compliant cinemas. Essentially, that requires that you have a DCI compliant display or projector and sound system. Now, some might think, oh, this is only for commercial systems. No, that's incorrect. You can actually have a private DCI compliant screening room where you can watch essentially pre-release Hollywood films, if you're willing to pay for them. Naturally, with professional installers, you will get a wider selection of products and components because installers will have dozens, if not more, distributors for tons of different brands. So that's a big win. Future-proofing is an option. If the installer is speccing it correctly, they will put cabling in place so that it is future-proofed for the next decade or two. Similarly for the equipment, as we're now transitioning from 4K to 8K video, for instance, having the right receivers in place and video distribution, etc. Everything like that, being ready for 8K just means all you might have to upgrade are your source devices. And then a professional installer can obviously make sure that all elements of the basic requirements are covered. So if you look back at the previous video, there was I mentioned all the basic requirements for what constitutes a home cinema system. A professional installer can very easily, without even having to think about it, kind of design a system that includes all of these elements. The biggest downside though, if you don't have the budget for it, is that it can be super expensive. Some home cinema systems, they can go up to, well, sky's the limit essentially. They start from maybe tens of thousands of pounds or dollars. They can go up to hundreds of thousands of pounds and dollars. So again, one thing to bear in mind. So to conclude, obviously you are here because you either want to learn how to do it yourself, or you are already an industry pro and you want to help out, or you want to learn more. Everyone is welcome. So head on over to the community and get involved. See you there.